I'm talking about real pain. That pain that just shoots down your leg and you literally can't do anything other than just sit down, grit your teeth, and maybe just have a little bit of a cry. That's exactly how I was feeling when I ran the Pikes Peak Marathon in Colorado, and today I am going to talk you through what I learned from running up a mountain and applying it to life. Well, if you're new here, great to have you. My name is Brendan. I'm a recovering accountant based here in London, and I help millennials like you navigate busy lives and make sure that work doesn't suck. Now, with not sucking in mind, I love a challenge. Now, some of them actually do suck. Well, they suck at the time, they don't suck overall. But I'm a bit of an endurance challenge enthusiast, which is slightly oxymoronic, I know, but it's something that I like doing. Now, in the last couple of years, I've got bigger and bigger aspirations. I'm not quite sure where they're going to end, but this one relates to running up to 14,000 feet in the mountains of Colorado. At that point, it had been 2 years since I completed the Vichy in France Ironman, so the full 140.6. And after the euphoria of completing that, the inevitable question that came not only from friends and family was, what's next? That is a very good question, and I would hate to admit that I do have a list of aspirational challenges that I want to go after, and one day I might share them with you. But today is not that day, because when I think about it, I started looking at what the next challenge was. I thought, why not do a running event? That should be quite easy to train for. I've just got to put some trainers on, run out the door, and away we go. I had done a marathon at the end of the Ironman, but other than that, I'm not the greatest of runners. It's just not something that I'm massively keen on, and I generally don't enjoy. But I do enjoy a challenge, so I started just to Google, what are the world's toughest half marathons? I mean, nobody wants to sign up for a full marathon now, do they? I mean, that would be silly. So when I started Googling away, world's toughest half marathons, I found some interesting events, some called Sea to Sky. Now, they were based over in the west coast of America, where you could run from the beach in, I think it's California, up into the mountains in one day, and it sounded amazing. I mean, who wouldn't want to start at the sea and then finish in the snow? Unfortunately, on deeper investigation, it transpired that the event wasn't being run that year, so back to the drawing board. But what it did do is it set off a bit of a light bulb, going, well, what about elevation? Not the U2 song, but in terms of going from low to high. So I started looking at events that would go from sort of a reasonably low level and scaling the big heights, and I stumbled across an event called the Pikes Peak Marathon. Now, the Pikes Peak Marathon, funnily enough, it takes place on Pikes Peak, which is one of the tallest peaks in the Colorado mountains, and it happens every year. There are, in fact, two events. The first is called the Pikes Peak Ascent, which, funnily enough, it goes from the start to the top, and then the marathon goes from the start to the top and then down again. Now, me being me, I decided, well, if I'm going to run up, might as well come down again. I mean, otherwise, what's the point? Plus, I'm only going to come down if I get to the top anyway. So with that, I took the chance and I entered. I remember distinctly telling my other half, pretty much as I was paying for my entry fee, saying, I'm entering this event in Colorado, do you mind if I go? So with that, I'd paid my entry fee, I'd committed to doing this event, I sat back and I just thought about how glorious it would be. Little did I know quite the event and the pain and the experience that would greet me on the other side. After signing up, you quickly realize, you think, shit, what am I going to do to train? Well, frantically Googling away, I realized that I would need a bit of a training plan. Fortunately, as with all these things, there is a great community, and I have to say thank you to the Pikes Peak community for anybody that's been involved or has run it, because talking on the forums, it quickly transpired that I did need a plan, and there were a couple that are available, and there was one that was in Excel that I could look at and change it from kilometers into miles and so forth. Anyway, the point is I found one. And I started to think around, what is it that I needed to do? Now, you've got to bear in mind that then and now, I live in London. Now, London is not known for its hills. In fact, it's pretty bloody flat. The UK doesn't have many massive mountains. I mean, there are obviously the 3 peaks that people walk up and scale, but there's nothing to rival anything in Colorado. And it's also not the easiest to get to mountains to do some serious training. I'd have to travel up to Scotland on a recurring basis, or maybe even get to the Alps. So I'm not entirely sure I'd thought through this, but with all big challenges, do you really think about what you're going to do in advance? I don't think so. Anyway, I just kind of ignored that. I was like, I'll get a training plan, I will go to the gym, I will put the treadmill on the tallest gradient you can, and I'll just run on that for hours. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? That leads me in nicely to my relationship with the gym. Over the course of the next 20 odd weeks, I got very, very close to a particular treadmill in the gym, and I would like to say that we became friends, but it was more of a love-hate relationship. I think the treadmill probably loved it. I pretty much hated it. That's not really true. I didn't mind it. I was a huge fan of podcasts and audiobooks, and I must admit I whistled through most of the Jack Reacher audio series, which is brilliant. If you need a listen, please do check it out on Audible, and also the podcasts with things like Flintoff Savage and the Ping Pong Guy, or that Peter Crouch podcast. They help just while away the hours. So how was it? I mean, it was all right. Because I got my plan. I started working out on the treadmill. Working out is a bit grand. I started training on the treadmill, and I worked out how long each section of the marathon would be and changed the gradient to do it. So for example, if I knew that there was the best part of a mile at 7%, then I would change the incline on the treadmill to 7%, and then if it changed down again, I'd change it down. And so pretty much just worked out, according to the plan, what speed I would need to go at. So for example, it could be 3 miles an hour at 7%, and then down to 2% at 5 miles an hour. And this was all based off some of the experience and some of the research and plans that others had used. With that in mind, the uphill stretch was going to take about 4 hours. And I'm a bit of a stickler for training. I genuinely think about sort of training hard and race easy. So it would be remiss of me not to mention that I pretty much did the entire uphill stretch on the treadmill in one go as a test. Yes, it was 3 hours, 51 minutes on a treadmill in the gym. It was fucking long. It was hard. I remember stepping off that. Well, in actual fact, I had to keep resetting it, because after an hour it would reset and you'd have to go back to where you were. And let alone the number of gym classes that I would see people going on in front of me, and I'd be stood there eating jelly babies and having my electrolyte drinks as people come and go. I mean, when you get on the treadmill at 9 and you leave nearish at 1, you realise you've been on it for a bloody long time. But it was satisfying. In my heart of hearts, I thought, yes, I've done it. I know that I can run up the hill. So I thought that was good. At least I thought if I can get up, then coming down shouldn't be too much of a problem. So let's fast forward 20 odd weeks, and I'm standing at the start line waiting to go. The butterflies are going. I've got my rucksack, which is effectively carrying my water, had a bladder in the back which was full of electrolytes. You had to carry some food. I got my shin calf guards on, I got my trainers on, I had my hat. I didn't put too much sun cream on, and yeah, that was a bit of an error. But as I look around, there were many people around that you wouldn't perceive to be marathon fit, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna be all right here. I don't know whether that makes me shallow or not, but I just thought, I'm gonna be okay. I'll back myself, I'll get to the top, and then coming down, how hard can it be? So as the gun went off, we all started crossing the finish line, and in the Pikes Peak Marathon, you start off on tarmac, and as you get a bit higher, it goes into dirt track, and then you start weaving your way up the mountain. As a side note, there is actually a car race that they do, which is kind of scaling up the roads in Pikes Peak, and I think somebody nearly tried to break the record in the last week or two, but might be worth having a bit of a Google. So as I said off, it's probably worth noting that it's more of a fast hike than a run, well, in certain places. And sometimes it's single lane, so I must have been surrounded by probably 300 or 400 people in total. Some were doing the ascent, so just up, and some were doing the marathon and down again. And as you kind of start scrambling over some of the rocks and you're walking on the dirt track, because it is single lane, when people do come back the other way, the first person to see them will shout, "Runner!" And then we just stand to the side and the runners would just hammer past. In actual fact, that happened to me probably about 2.5 hours in. I heard the first sound of runner and I thought, what the dickens is going on here? I asked the chap behind me and he said, that means that the leaders are coming back. I'm sorry, what? The leaders are coming back? Yeah, so as runner was shouted, we all stood to the side, and all I can say is it was gazelle-like. The blur of just arms and legs flew past, as it was probably best described as falling with grace. I don't think I could fall that quick, let alone run that quick. It was literally just skipping across the stones and just this blur of activity, and I thought, bloody hellfire, he's on his way down. So 2.5 hours on the way up for me, and this chap is already on the way down. I mean, it transpired that the winner of the race did it in just over, or just under 4.5 hours, I think. 4.5 hours to run up and down a bloody mountain? God, I mean, that's unreal. I mean, the figure of these athletes is very wiry and very lanky, and so they've got good strides and good balance, but I mean, I was literally just blown away. So there I was at 2.5 hours in, seeing people coming all the way down, going, right, well, I'm not even near the top yet. But I committed to the process. I knew I'd done the plan, I'd been on the treadmill. I was a bit worried about the altitude, but you know, that'll be fine. I mean, what can I do about it now? And so the miles started ticking away, just concentrating, scrambling over the rocks. It was quite windy in places and became really exposed, and you could see across the valleys. It was absolutely glorious. And as I got close to the top, the mind started to think about the route down. I hadn't really paid much attention with coming down. That could be a bit of a challenge. Anyway, I got to the top, and with a slight sort of euphoric cheer, everybody goes, well done, well done. I was like, well, actually, I'm doing the marathon, so I need to go back down again. So they pointed me in the same direction. I started the journey back. Now, I would be lying if I said it wasn't painful, because almost within a couple of miles, and I know a couple of miles doesn't sound that long, but I realised I was in trouble. Now, at this point, I've been going probably 6 hours, so I've been up to the top, 13.1 miles, and I'm on my way down, and to say that it was hard is an understatement. Why? Well, next time you're walking down a ramp, just take a moment to notice what your legs are doing. The chances are is they're stopping you from going too fast. And this is where the novices and the experts really differ in how they do these mountain marathons. Because for me, I was worried about going too fast. So I would stop myself from going too fast, and that would mean that I would effectively try and stop my momentum. By doing that, you're using your quads and your calves. Now, if you've just been running a marathon or running a half marathon up a mountain, the chances are you've used your quads quite a lot already. So for them to then go into full brake mode on the way down, the chances are you're going to end up with some serious cramps. And that's exactly what I did. Yes, I know. I can hear you saying, well, why didn't you train for coming down? Well, I just didn't think about it. I mean, how also could I do it? Turn the treadmill round and walk down, or walk backwards on the treadmill on a gradient? I don't know. And to be honest, would it have made any difference? Other than doing like 1 million steps on my stairs, I don't think so. But that's all superfluous, because at the time there was nothing else I could do. I would either sit down and stop, or I'd have to keep going. But as the time started ticking away, the run became a jog, the jog became a waddle, the waddle became a walk, and the walk became a hobble. And all of a sudden, I was pretty much just putting one foot in front of the other and going nowhere fast. But I persevered. I persevered till probably about mile 18. 18 miles, my word. Even now, just thinking about it brings me up in a little bit of a shiver, just thinking about what I went through. But mile 18 will forever be etched in my mind, because I remember sitting down for a moment and just thinking, can't do it. I genuinely not sure I'm going to make it. Now, this is the first time in a long time in most of my challenges where I've really questioned whether I can actually finish an event. I've cycled the length of the country here in the UK, so Land's End to John O'Groats. I've done a full Ironman, I've done half Ironmans, I've cycled the width of the country, I've done many things. But this was the first time in a long time where I just didn't think I was going to make it. Yeah, I mean, mind blowing. Even now I feel slightly emotional thinking about it. So I sat down, I took a moment, and I had a little word with myself. I could feel myself feeling emotional. And I said, can I get to mile 20? So 2 miles away. Yeah, okay. It might be slow, it might be painful, but I think I can do it. Now mentally I said if I can get to 20, I can get to 26. Because I knew that from, was it 2 or 3 miles after that, it would get into tarmac, and that would mean we're near the village, and that would mean that we are so close to finishing. So I battled on. And mile 20, I've never been so pleased to see the miles start ticking away. It was agony. Cramp in both your quads and your calves at the same time. If you've cycled, you may have been through that, and that's generally where you take a gel and you do something to keep you going, but I didn't have anything. I didn't have any gels left. There was time before the next pit stop. People were running past or in the distance. What do you do? With tears in my eyes, again, I sat down and I just pondered what I was going to do. I thought I was done. I thought that was it, right? Pull the plug, pull the ripcord, I'm out. But at that point, a runner came and sat down next to me. I don't even know the gentleman's name, but he sat down next to me and said, how you doing? And I explained the situation. I said, look, I'm a flatlander from London. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed and out of my depth. And we had a quick chat, and he said, well, where are you? I said, was it mile 21, 22, whatever it was. He said, well, you're on the home stretch. You've done the hard work. You've been to the top, literally and figuratively, and you're on the way down to the finish line. Just imagine how you'll feel when you cross that finish line. I don't know what it was, but the words resonated, and I just thought, I can't quit now. He said, if you quit, which you're more than welcome to do, I don't want you to, but you can, it will live with you. Unless you've given absolutely everything and you're injured and you can't go on, or there's something stopping you, you will regret not giving it your all and finishing. Now, for me, that really resonates because as a sportsman, quitting just doesn't come naturally. And that's why the train hard, race easy mantra is I want to do everything in my power before I do these events that means that I can actually complete them. So with the gentleman's words ringing in my ears as he ran off into the distance, and with dogged determination, a beating head because the altitude had started to affect me. I was dehydrated, my feet were killing me, I had blisters all over the place, the sun was still beating down, the clock was ticking away. I just decided to put one foot in front of the other. Slowly and surely, just try and tick by the final miles. I've come so far. It was painful and I just couldn't give up then. After a number of indiscriminate miles, I've never been so relieved to see tarmac or black asphalt or whatever you call it in my life. Why? Because that meant that I was on the homeward stretch. The homeward stretch because they had gone from trail to tarmac, and tarmac meant we were near the village, and the village meant that that's where the finish was. Oh my word. How good does that feel? I did promise myself that I would run through the finish line no matter how painful it was. And I distinctly remember as I came round the corner in the very last turn, as you reach the end, you see the finish line in the distance and you can hear the crowds and there's a band and there's all sorts of celebrations going on. I thought, right, this is it. And I just broke in to the most painful, hobbling jog that I'm sure you've ever seen. But to me, I felt like a gazelle. I was no Usain Bolt or Mo Farah by any stretch, but I just broke into a canter and I put the pain to one side and I just focused on getting to the finish line. As you get closer, you can hear the announcer pick out your number and then say your name, and you hear the euphoria of the crowd and you hear people cheering your name. And literally that moment where you get to the finish line and the announcer says, Brendan Ellis from London, England has completed Pikes Peak Marathon. Well done. Congratulations. Grab yourself a medal and sit down and have a well-earned rest. It just, yeah, overwhelming. So coming to the finish line was just an enormous release of emotion and relief. I had taken on 14,114 feet and won. I didn't win, but I'd won my battle. And that's what I set out to do. It wasn't pleasant. It wasn't easy. It probably wasn't much fun at times, but I'd done it. I'd committed and I'd trained, and with dogged determination, I'd reached my goal. So after crossing the finish line, I was greeted by my other half, and she gave me a great big hug and a can of full fat Coke, which I very rarely drink because I was so dehydrated. I needed some sugar and some electrolytes. And I said, please, can I sit down? I took the shoes off, which was probably a mistake because the feet were in all sorts of pieces. And I think from memory, we were staying in a hotel around the corner. I celebrated with an ice bath, a beer, and a sit down. But even now, I'm so proud of myself for getting through that. And yes, I probably did bite off more than I could chew, but that's where you learn about yourself. Now, the reason for telling you this story is because I learned lessons about life that I think are worth sharing. We can apply them to both life and our career. And these are the lessons that I learned. You need to have belief in yourself. No matter how big or small the challenges that you're going after, you need to believe in yourself. In much the same way that when you work in one of the big corporates, nobody else is going to look out for number one other than you. You need to believe in you. Now, I have a saying that I firmly believe that people are capable of more than they realize, and that is born out of the fact that that's how I feel. Some of the times I sign up for these things thinking, I don't know if I can do it. The same was true of the Ironman. This Pikes Peak Marathon was again another one where I just wanted to find out whether I'm capable of it or not. Can it be done? Many have. Even there was a 70-year-old gentleman who was a local in Pikes Peak and did it in, I think, just under 6 hours. 6 hours at the age of 70. Sorry about going all high there, but what the dickens? I mean, that's just incredible. So you need to have belief in yourself. In whatever it is, please don't be arrogant, but back yourself and give it a bloody good go. You will also need support from others. You may need, whether it be somebody to sit down next to you when you're having a bit of a cry and a bit of a moment halfway up a mountain, or somebody to console or to support you going through a tough period in your life, or to prepare you for a job interview. You need somebody or people there to support. Very rarely can we do these things on our own. Even the greatest entrepreneurs often have a significant other or a business partner or people to lean on or mentors to help them through the tough periods. If some of the world's greatest, and think businessmen, speakers, sportsmen and women, have coaches, and why don't we? Usain Bolt, the world's fastest man, had a start coach or a running coach. So why don't we think we need a coach? Barack Obama, one of the world's greatest orators, has a speaking coach. So why do we think we don't? You will need a support network no matter what you do. I want you to shoot for the stars, because if you hit the moon, it is better than aiming for the ceiling and hitting the floor. It's a very tenuous analogy, but what I'm trying to say is if you go big and you only get halfway, the chances are you're going to achieve and succeed more than if you play it safe and you set yourself an easily achievable goal. Did I know I could do Pikes Peak Marathon? In all honesty, no idea. I thought I'd give it a good go. But if I played it safe and I thought I can get to the top and I'll only do the upward piece, then yeah, that was fine. But I was pretty confident I could get to the top. But coming down again? Not sure. So even if I'd quit on the halfway down, I would then have been half again as far as if I'd just gone up. So why wouldn't I? What I want you to take away is don't sell yourself short. Aim big. Don't be afraid to aim big. We in the UK are so good at tempering enthusiasm and knocking people down. Don't. Go big. Go really big. You might just surprise yourself and achieve something amazing. You need to keep moving forwards in much the same way I had to put one foot in front of the other. That is a metaphor for life. Every journey starts with the first step, metaphorically speaking or literally speaking in my marathon. If you keep taking small steps, you will move yourself to where you want to be, or at least get yourself closer. Don't stop, because if you stop, you don't make any progress. Take pride. Take pride in what you do. Don't be boastful, because nobody likes a jackass, but why not be proud of what you're trying to do? Tell people. If you tell people, you're going to have accountability. And accountability buddies are those people around you that can actually keep you on the right track and keep you motivated and keep you going, in much the same way of having a support network. But I'm immensely proud of my achievements. I'm not going to shout on the rooftops from them, but that's why I want to pass on this video. It's like I learned a great deal from going through the pain of running a marathon up a mountain. You don't need to do that. But if you can take away anything from this, and that's where these lessons come from, then I hope that you take pride in whatever it is that you do. And finally, have a goal. Have a bloody big goal. Don't be afraid to go big. You may have heard the big, hairy, audacious goal comment, and that just means like go after it. Who's going to tell you that you can't? Many. Do they really know or care? No. It's up to you. You are capable of more than you realize. But you need to have a goal. And to have a goal, you need to have a plan. Because when you're taking on these big things, knowing the direction that you're going is great, but having something to fall back on is key. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. I think that's one of the Special Forces mottos, but what it does show you is, you know what, let's hope things go really well, but let's have a plan in case it doesn't. And those are the lessons that I learned from running a marathon of a mountain, which I'm applying to life. I hope you found them useful, and with that I wish you all a good day, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers!